Hey, Elise, Pickett here with the Urban Harvest, and today I asked my viewers a few questions that they had about growing carrots. So here it is. We are going to go through everything you need to know to grow carrots. Carrots are a wonderful crop to grow in your garden. It is a lot of fun, especially if you're working with children in the garden, and to be quite honest, adults too. But there are some nuances to growing carrots, and definitely some things that can help you get better results and better yields. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about which kinds of carrots to plant, when to plant them, as well as some additional growing tips and maintenance tips. So let's get started. First things first, when do you plant carrots? Most of the country will grow them over the spring and summer months. As usual, in Florida, we are the opposite. We are going to be growing carrots over the winter months. In general, you are going to be growing your carrots between October and March. If you're in North Florida, you can plant them a little bit earlier and later, so a longer growing season. And if you're in South Florida, you're going to shorten that up a little bit and start planting them a little bit later, say November time. If you try to grow carrots over the summer months here, you will not have germination and you definitely will not get roots to form. So now that we have when to plant, you are going to think about where to plant. Several of you asked what kind of containers or beds, which is better, and the answer is yes to all of it. You can grow carrots in raised beds, you can grow carrots in containers, pretty much anywhere, as long as you have a minimum of 8 to 12 inches of soil for them to grow in. And that is the minimum. Ideally, you might have 12, maybe even 14, or if you're one of those lucky gardeners and you have the nice 2 to 3 foot deep beds, even better. There are carrots that grow really, really long. But here in Florida, I usually suggest half-long varieties. They usually only grow 6 to 10 inches long, but they do much better in our soil conditions because we are having to bring in all of our soil in the form of raised beds or containers. So I would highly recommend looking for half-long types. If you would like a little bit of assistance finding the varieties that do well here in Florida, you can head to my seed shop where I have a curated collection of seeds all selected for growing here in Florida, and all of the varieties of carrots that I have listed there are the half-long types. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box when you're growing carrots or any other crop here. If you wanted to, you could literally take a 5-gallon bucket, poke some holes in the bottom for drainage, and grow your carrots in there. I did grow carrots last season successfully in my green stock, but like I said, make sure to pay attention to the growing depth. So you can see here I have both the original green stock and the leaf green stock. If I'm growing carrots, I would only plant in the original because of the depth of the container. If you try to plant carrots in soil that does not have enough room for them, you end up with either stunted growth, or you'll have the crazy looking carrots where they like fork apart and turn into like little men walking. So do make sure that you get your 8 to 12 inches of depth on your soil, and aside from that, get creative. So let's talk a little bit about sowing your seeds. The first thing I would suggest is to direct sow your seeds. Carrots are not something that you can buy as starts. Because you're harvesting the root crop, it is a root crop, if you try to start them in trays and transplant them into the garden, it is almost for sure that you are going to damage the root system, which is what you're harvesting, and they're probably going to die. Root crops like to be direct sown where they are going to grow. What kind of growing conditions do they like? They like light. Ideally 6 hours of sun minimum, up to 8 hours of sun. They can maybe take a little bit less, but if they are in less light growing conditions, they are going to be slower to grow, and they're likely not going to form as big of roots. As far as soil is concerned, if your soil is at all compacted, if you live in North Florida and you have clay in your soil, or if you are down south and you have that hard packed limestone, make sure you are loosening the soil. If you're working in raised beds, making sure the soil beneath the raised bed ideally is loosened. And if, let's say, your soil became compacted from rain over the summer months and you're looking to plant carrots in fall, loosening up your soil is really important. As far as fertilizer is concerned, or what the nutrients are in your soil, carrots do like a lot of potassium and phosphorus. So if you ever look on the bag of a fertilizer container, it's going to say NPK. In theory, we are looking for something that's going to be a little bit higher in P and K, phosphorus and potassium, for ideal growing conditions for carrots. That being said, homegrown compost will do beautifully for you. And even the well-rounded fertilizers where you got a 353 or something along those lines will still do really well for your carrots. If you want to take it one step further and go into the realm of companion planting, you can. Carrots play nice with pretty much anything in the garden. The one thing that you would want to avoid are things that are in the same family. So dill is actually in the same family as carrots. They don't companion plant well together because they're likely to attract the same pest issues and fungal issues. That goes for any kind of companion planting. Typically, things in the same family are not going to want to be planted next to each other because it's more likely to attract pests. When you're planting carrots, they're pretty tiny seeds. So one of the questions that I got from all of you was how to sow them thinly enough so that you're not wasting seed. They do sell pelleted carrot seeds, which are definitely an option. You can get them in organic form, but basically it's going to come in a little round ball, and that just makes it easier for you to pick up one seed and place it where you want. That is one approach to sowing your seeds so that you're not wasting seed. And you are going to want to be placing the carrots about 2 inches apart, ultimately, so that they have plenty of room to grow in while maximizing your space. You want them to be 2 inches apart. So the pelleted seeds can be nice to be able to use just one seed, go 2 inches, just one seed. Alternatively, you can buy non-pelleted seed, which is typically what I end up doing. And when you're sprinkling it into the soil, you do try to go a little bit on the light side, but you also go into it knowing that you're going to need to thin the seeds. It's just part of growing from seed, is knowing when to thin things out. I do have an entire video that shows you how to thin things properly and why it is so important to growing healthy produce. So if you want to learn more about thinning out your seedlings, make sure to check out the video link above. As for carrots, what I will usually do is dig my furrow, sprinkle in the seeds, cover up my furrow, and then go back in a week to 10 days and thin them out. Wait another week to 10 days and thin them out again. And by doing that, I'm able to get that proper 2-inch spacing. I don't waste a ton of extra seed, and when I do pull them, I use them either as microgreens or I feed them to the chickens. When you do go to thin out your carrots, it is ideal to actually trim the carrots out rather than pulling it up out of the ground. If you are pulling it up and there's a lot of the carrots nearby that you do ideally want to leave, because sometimes you can have 4 or 5 seeds germinate in one spot. If you go pulling them up, it's likely that you could damage the root that you leave. Carrots are slow growers, so do not expect to be able to harvest your carrots in a month like you do with radishes. It can actually take 2, even 3 weeks for carrots to even germinate, meaning sprout up out of the soil. And then it's going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 months before they are ready to harvest. How do you know when it's time to harvest? I will generally just very gently dig around the base of the leaves, and that'll give you an idea of the top of the carrot. Depending on the variety you planted, when it's about the size of a quarter or around 2 to 3 months, it should be ready for you to harvest. I always pull one carrot first just to get an idea. That way, if the rest of them need to stay in a little bit longer, no harm, no foul, and you get a little bit of a baby carrot snack. Carrots are also a really good candidate for succession planting. I do have an entire video that details how and why to succession plant your plants, but the basic concept is that you are not going to plant all of your carrots all at once, because if you do, you will have a lot of carrots ready all at once. If you want to have a consistent harvest over the season, I would recommend starting a row of carrots, waiting a couple of weeks, starting another row of carrots, and so on and so forth throughout the growing season, so that you have a manageable harvest consistently over the winter months. Hopefully these growing tips and questions that we covered in this video give you the confidence to grow your own carrots. It is a delicious garden snack and a pretty easy crop to plant, sow, and harvest. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover in this video, make sure to head on down below and leave me a comment. I do try my hardest to get back to every comment that you all leave here on YouTube. So go ahead and shoot your questions down there, and if we need to, maybe a follow-up video. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you're alerted every time a new video comes out on Florida-based vegetable gardening. Happy fall!